Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Egypt has been trying to broker a ceasefire agreement between the Islamist Hamas organization and Israel in what an Egyptian official told TV7 aims to alleviate tensions, pave the way for the Gaza Strip's reconstruction, and ultimately set a much-needed foundation for a viable solution to the decades-old conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. The families of two slain Israeli soldiers held by Hamas in Gaza stage a protest in front of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem, during which they call on the Israeli leader to withhold any agreement with the Islamist Palestinian groups unless they retrieve the bodies of the soldiers. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announces that the United States intends to fully enforce a series of international sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran as part of the orders given by President Donald Trump. Egypt has been trying to broker a ceasefire agreement between the Islamist Hamas organization and Israel in what an Egyptian official told TV7 aims to alleviate tensions, pave the way for the Gaza Strip's reconstruction, and ultimately set a much-needed foundation for a viable solution to the decades-old conflict. In a move that initially pointed to a possible breakthrough, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to postpone a scheduled trip to Colombia. Nevertheless, after a meeting of Hamas's political leadership that resulted in an agreement to Egypt's proposed ceasefire, the Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas refused to the Egyptians' compromise proposal, which includes, among others, the payment of salaries to Gazan employees by the Palestinian Authority and the assumption of responsibility over the Palestinian enclave, thus distancing the chances for an intra-Palestinian reconciliation agreement. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, the Israeli government security cabinet convened for 5 hours yesterday to discuss the possible ceasefire agreement. Nevertheless, members of the security cabinet reached the conclusion last night that the chances for a broad and long-term arrangement in the Gaza Strip are slim. The meeting, which also included a situation update from IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, ended with the understanding that there were too many obstacles on the path to the arrangement, and it is doubtful that there would be any way to overcome them. It is for this reason that no decisions were made, and the members of the security cabinet were not asked to vote on approving Israel's part of the arrangement. In a related matter, the Hamas organization announced that it will not return the bodies of IDF soldiers that have been killed during the 2014 Gaza war, as well as several Israeli civilians that entered into Gaza and are being held by the Islamist group in the Palestinian enclave. Hamas emphasized that only the release of serious Palestinian prisoners would bring about an exchange for progress in the talks over the return of the Israeli civilians and slain IDF soldiers, including Oron Shaul and Hadar Goldin. On the other hand, Israel opposes the release of any Palestinian prisoners with blood on their hands and has demanded that any broad humanitarian arrangement begin with the return of the Israeli civilians and the bodies of the IDF soldiers. Israeli Intelligence Minister Israel Katz, who met before the Security Cabinet meeting with members of the Goldin family and heard its demand to condition any arrangement with Hamas upon the return of their boys, posted on Twitter, "The situation in Gaza is boiling down to a critical point, either an agreement or war. I will support any plan that will include putting Egyptian infrastructure in place in the sea and on land for Gaza with international supervision. In the short term, any aid to Gaza must be conditioned on a clear arrangement for the return of the dead soldiers' bodies and the captives." Meanwhile, the families of the two slain Israeli soldiers held by the Islamist Hamas staged a protest in front of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem, during which they called on the Israeli leader to withhold any agreement with the Islamist Palestinians unless they retrieve the bodies of the soldiers.
So it's not going. It's not understandable that our Prime Minister will provide humanitarian aid to Gaza and initiate arrangements and other solutions for Gaza without requesting the return of Hadar and Oron as a first step.
Now, in other news, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced that the United States intends to fully enforce a series of international sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran early this week as part of the orders given by U.S. President Donald Trump. The first set of sanctions that had been lifted by the Obama administration under the terms of the 2015 multinational nuclear deal, Washington announced those sanctions will take effect today. Among others, and despite opposition from its European allies, the United States has revoked licenses that allowed Iran to purchase both American and European aircrafts. That is why, in a hasty deal hammered out yesterday, the Islamic Republic acquired 5 new European commercial planes before the sales were cut off. While the Trump administration demanded of its European partners to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action to amend the agreement, which was labeled by the United States as a flawed deal that did not adequately influence Iran's nuclear aspirations, Washington's European allies, including Germany, France, and Great Britain, had sought rather to preserve the 2015 agreement that saw the EU's energy-related imports from the Islamic Republic rise substantially, as well as other significant business agreements.
Tomorrow, the European Union's updated blocking statute enters into force to protect EU companies doing legitimate business with Iran from the impact of the US extraterritorial sanctions. What I can say is that the blocking statute, once it enters into force, will allow EU operators to recover damages arising from US extraterritorial sanctions from the persons causing them, and nullifies the effect in the EU of any foreign court rulings based on them. It also forbids EU persons from complying with those sanctions.
According to Sebastian Heinrich, a professor of international relations and foreign policy at Heidelberg University, the European Union wants to protect its promising business ties with Iran. Moreover, European leaders that support the nuclear agreement warn that if the United States wages war on Iran, a new military conflict could escalate the situation in the Middle East, which would subsequently jeopardize peace and stability in Europe.
First of all, the Germans believe that this is the best way to contain the Iranian nuclear program at this time. Germany wants to prevent a further escalation of military conflict in the Middle East. I think the German, as well as other European governments, think that right now the Middle East is already in trouble and wants to contain the effect of that escalation.
Final and most significant sanctions the United States intends to impose on the Islamic Republic, including those on Iran's oil sector and central bank, will be restored on the 4th of November. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo emphasized to reporters upon his return from an Asian trip that the sanctions are an important part of Washington's efforts to push back against Iranian malign activity. Thank you for watching us. You can also watch us at tv7israelnews.com or tv7.fi. For any comments, please send your emails to israelnews@tv7.fi. For more updates from Israel and its region, please join our Facebook page at TV7 Israel News. Keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. Jonathan Hassan, Erev Tov and Shavua Tov. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time.